Rev up your engines!
Joseph Armato says, good morning, congratulations on your 2 billionth view. That's awesome. Yeah, well, thank you guys for watching it. But if it wasn't for you watching them, I wouldn't have 2 billion views. I'm here to help people out, you know? I'm out here to help people out without any baloney. You know, the reason I got into fixing cars is because I was a kid. I didn't have any money. I was cheap, so I'm fixing myself, and I don't trust people. And I see a lot of people, they don't know what the heck they're doing. Hey, it doesn't matter if they're mechanics, doctors, lawyers, whatever. Many people have no idea what they were doing. I mean, I went to school for ages. I was writing my PhD at the University of Illinois. And you know what? Most of the professors I had, they didn't know what they were doing. They were horrible teachers. The people at the top are generally the most incompetent people there. So I fight against all that and try to help everybody out with the planned obsolescence of our world and the people trying to cheat you your money. Hey, let's all band together. When you got a problem, tell me. I'll tell the world about it. Somebody cheated, you tell me. I'll tell everybody else about it. So then people won't get cheated as much if they know what to look out for, who to stay away from, which car manufacturers to buy, and which ones to run away from. Neufeld Ducky says, hey, from Norway. I bought a Ford Escape hybrid electric vehicle 2020, 70,000 kilometers. Every time I put it in neutral, it starts shaking. 7 months with the dealer, it still got the problem. What can I do? Well, I shouldn't have bought a Ford in the first place. Their quality has gone down the toilet. You say every time you put it in neutral, it starts shaking. Well, why are you putting it in neutral? The hybrid vehicles, you better just leave them and drive the whole time. It uses gasoline sometimes, it uses electric other times, sometimes it uses both. You don't want to put it in neutral. There's no point even using neutral on those cars. Regular cars, yeah, but those, it's all computer run. You shouldn't even be putting it in neutral. I would just run it. If it runs fine and drive and it doesn't shake, leave it alone. I wouldn't. Who knows what it's going to do when you put it in neutral. They weren't designed to even be run in neutral. And of course, you put them in park, sometimes they'll be running if the battery's low, but if the battery's high, then they won't be running. So if it runs fine and drive, personally, I just leave it alone. They weren't made to be run in neutral. The hybrid cars are complex and they're all run by computers. As long as it runs fine and drive, I'd live with it. Amazed Galaxy says, Scotty got an 06 Toyota RAV4. The battery light comes on after I start the car for a few moments. Then it goes away. I went to AutoZone. They said it's okay. What should I do? Numero uno, check the belt, the drive belt, or as I used to call them, fan belts, but now you can't. It's politically incorrect, but the belt that drives it. If it's loose, it will do exactly that. And then it can tighten up as it gets hot, right? And then stop doing it. Could be the belt's loose. Now, if it isn't the belt, it could be corrosion. Take all the terminals off the battery and the alternator, clean them up, put them back on. Corroded or cracked wire could do that. Easy could do it. If it's not that, then generally, the alternator's starting to go, and what you would do then would be find a guy like me, leave it with him overnight. Say, check my car in the morning. First thing in the morning, I would put my alternator tester on it. I'd start it right up and test it immediately. And it could be that it's not charging right in the beginning, but then it starts. It would mean the alternator's starting to go up. But you'd have to check it after it's sat all night, because it only happens when you first start it up. Mechanic's got to have it cold so he can see what it's like when it's cold. Just Mudskip 16 says, I got 2004 150 cylinder 4, 5, 6 misfire. Please help. Why is it doing this? All right, well, you got 3 misfires, 4, 5, and 6. So the first thing you want to do is you could take your coil-on plugs on 4, 5, and 6 and put them on 1, 2, and 3. And put the 1, 2, and 3 on 4, 5, 6. If the misfire changes to 1, 2, and 3, you know the ignition coils are bad. Real easy fix there, right? It could also be fuel injectors. You could swap the injectors too if you wanted, but it's a lot easier to check the ignition coils first. Pray it's not like a blowing head gasket. Now, for that, if only those three are misfiring, the other ones aren't, easiest thing to do is do a compression test. And if you find those cylinders are low and the others aren't, it means the engine's just, the head gasket's blown, and maybe even more, like those cylinders are worn, you'd have to tear the engine apart, and it would cost a fortune. Start simple and work your way up. It's always how you want to do them. Pray it's just ignition coil, spark plug, something like that. Not the head gasket or internal engine problem. Jason Williams says, Scott, I got a Sentra. When I braked, the brake pedal went all the way to the floor. I checked my brake fluid was empty. I refilled it, and every time it leaked by the right wheel. That's real simple. On a right wheel, you got a Nissan Sentra, they're relatively cheaply made vehicles, should have drum brakes in the back. There is a part in there called the wheel cylinder. You need a new wheel cylinder. When they go, then they squirt fluid inside, and if you see it's all wet there, you're probably going to have to change the brake shoes too, because once they get corroded, covered with brake fluid, they're no good anymore. They're all rotten, and you'll have to replace them too. But do it soon before you kill yourself going down the road. That's the one thing about those simple, basic cars like that. They're a lot easier to diagnose and fix fix. They're not all these modern electronic braking crap with traction control and stuff. Those are simple systems. They're easy to fix. They were all that way when I was a young mechanic. Well, life was a lot easier in those days. Kyle P says, Scotty, what are your thoughts on the new Nissan Titans Frontiers? I'm upset that the new Tacomas are looking at turbo engines, so I'm weighing my options. Well, truthfully, I am not a Nissan fan, as everybody knows who knows me. But the Titans and Frontiers aren't bad vehicles. I got customers with both, and they're usually relatively happy. Now, the Titans, of course, they're phenomenal gas hogs with the V8 engines. The ones that have the Cummins diesel engines get better gas mileage. Guy brought me one in Rhode Island with the Cummins diesel. He loves it. He's in love with his truck, And the Frontiers, yeah, they're not going to last as long as a Toyota, but they're not horrible vehicles. You hear me saying, oh, God, Nissan, these horrible Jatco transmissions. Well, the ones that they make in the trucks aren't bad, because those aren't front-wheel drive trannies. Those are rear-wheel drive, and they make those pretty good. They're not all that bad. And I kind of agree. If you're going to pull weight and stuff, I wouldn't want a four-cylinder turbo. I'd want at least a V6 or a V8. I wouldn't want a four-cylinder turbo for a truck that's pulling a bunch of stuff. Won't last as long. Mark Johnson says, Scotty, my key won't turn when I put in the ignition. What do you think it is? All right, well, let's hope it's just a bad key. This is why I tell people. And listen to Uncle Scotty here. You got a car. Make sure you have at least 2 known good keys. Take the second one. Throw it in your drawer, and remember what drawer you threw it in. So, if the other key wears out, immediately get the key you know is good, put it in. If it starts, hurrah! Then throw the old key away, go to a locksmith and get another key made. It can be as simple as your key's worn out. They do wear out. If it's not your key, you got a Mercedes-Benz there. That means your lock assembly's breaking. Man, it is a job replacing the lock assembly on a Mercedes-Benz. You got to drill it out. It is one cow. The Mercedes were so anal. They didn't want anybody stealing. If you're not going to steal a Mercedes, so they made them so it's almost impossible to steal them, and it's almost impossible to change the ignition system out too. You got to drill that baby out, man. I know locksmiths that won't even touch those things, but pray you got another good key, and you might even try my old trick. Get some WD-40, the new Formula One. Spray the heck out of it in there. It doesn't hurt electronics. Keep wiggling. Maybe the lubrication will make it work again, but do get another key. If you got another key, try that first, because keys do wear out. And if it's worn out, throw it away and get another one. Michael says, I got a Honda 2018 CRV, 100,000 miles. It misfires on cold starts. Then it runs fine. Code PO302. All warning lights on. Okay, 302 means you got a misfire on cylinder number 2. But you said it only happens when it's cold. So, 1, change the spark plug on number 2. Maybe change the coil, ignition coil on number 2. It could be that simple. Now, let's say it's not that. It could be your fuel injector on number 2 is starting to go out. So you could either try a new fuel injector or swap them. And of course, when you swap parts, if you put 2 on 3 and 3 on 2 and the misfire goes from 2 to 3, that's the part that's wrong. That's the easiest way to diagnose it. Now, if it's none of those, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that can often be the head gasket is starting to blow on that cylinder. And it only doesn't begin when you first start. Once it heats up, the metal expands and it seals the leak. So that can happen. Pray it's the simpler one. Always start with simple fixes and work the complex. Coffee Joe says, my caliper won't retract. All right. Well, if you want to retract them correctly, the first thing you want to do is you want to open the bleeder valve on the top. Open the bleeder valve. Then get a giant pair of pliers, or I'm a mechanic, so I have caliper retracting tools. Now, you might want to buy a caliper retracting tool, because if you go to Harbor Freight Tools, they sell retracting kits with screw clamps. And they're like $29, and they work perfectly fine. So buy one of those. And you might find you buy one of those and you turn it, and it will retract in once you open it. Now, if it doesn't, then you need a new caliper. They'll corrode inside and rust, and then they don't work anymore. And if you can't squeeze them back in, that means when you're trying to brake, they're not squeezing out too well either. So then you just replace the whole thing. But go to like Harbor Freight Tools. They sell $19 ones that go on Amazon, buy the same thing. They're all made in China, but they're made out of steel. So who cares where the steel comes from? It works fine. Simple screw steel, all right? And then you'll be able to retract them. And if you can't, then replace the caliper. Don't go any further then. John Huntington says, morning, Scotty. Can warp brake rotors cause vibrations at higher speeds even when you don't press on the brake pedal? They certainly can happen. My grandson, his was shaking like insanity at 75. And I looked at it, and the rotors were so worn, there were almost holes in them. We put new rotors on, the shaking went away. Now, it shook when he hit the brakes too, but even when he didn't, it did, because they were so worn that they were so out of balance, they were making it shake back and forth like no tomorrow. Yeah, Yes, they will do that when they're really badly warped and worn out. JS31 says, Scotty from Australia, what do you think of the Holden V8 SS LS1 Ute? Oh, I'd love to have one. You know, they never sold them here in the United States. You know, those are screaming monsters with the Corvette engines in them. Hey, gas hogs, of course, but I mean, you Aussies were always into speed. Look at the Road Warrior. I'd love to have one. You ever come to the United States, hey, bring it to me. I'd love to drive it around, make a video about it. Those are interesting cars. It's a shame they don't make the Holdens anymore, but you know, GM pulled out of Australia. They pulled out of lots of places. They didn't have enough volume, and the people weren't buying enough of them. So, sad but true, there's no more Holdens. They don't make them anymore. They used to make them pretty good. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.